faithful through the ages. God of Abraham, you're the God of covenants and faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you do just what you say. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. Oh, seasons change, you remain the same. God from age to age, though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. Yeah, your history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your Good afternoon. This is to a radio broadcast. We are here this morning. This is Inside Liberia. We are here looking at issues unfolding in Liberia. Today we have a focus, and that focus is on some of the issues that are growing in Liberia, and our emphasis is on a segment of the newspaper publication. It has to do with the unfinished businesses as enumerated by that publication. So our emphasis today is just on some of those counts that were published by the newspaper, and it relates to some of the promises the government has made over the period. So this morning, there what our focus is, and as we said to a radio, is an African Action Network radio station, and independent-minded individuals who are here to ensure that democracy works for the good of the people. So this morning we take a look, and so stay with us wherever you are, whatever you're doing. If you are tuned to a radio, we appreciate you. Trust me, without you, we can be here. So thank you so much, and we just urge you to kindly share the broadcast. Liberia has a government, and the government for the day in that country is headed by ex-football star, world best player, George Weah. George Weah won the election, and he's now president of that country. Following his inauguration as president of that republic, there has been a lot of promises, and there have been a lot of hurdles in his administration. So some of those promises, what we want to put in spotlight this morning. You may know some of those problems already, and we just want to raise them since one of the publications in that country brought it to light, and we think that it's important that we look at those issues too. So your comment will be necessary for this broadcast, and follow us as we go into the debate. What are those promises that the government made and has not met those promises? And some of those programs and projects, um, as announced, has a serious implication as to the expectation of Liberians. As you may be aware, there has been this Iboman a Jeton venture project or programs of the government. George Weah promised to his government promised to provide a coastal highway for Liberia, and that is a very major promise within the CDC government. There's no singular doubt that Liberia needs better roads if that country is to progress from where it is. So when George Weah told Liberians that he was going to construct a coastal highway up to an international standard, Liberians became joyful, happy, and they became hopeful that someone who has the country at heart, or someone who knew, who they thought knew the problem of the people, was about to redeem that country by constructing a coastal highway for the southeastern region, thus reducing the burden on the people, the movement of the people from the southeastern side of Liberia. And if you have coastal highway for the southeastern side of Liberia, the effect of that road could have been could have reduced the burden of movement of the entire population. And then goods and services could move freely from the southeastern side, from the Nima Mountain, the Nima County, to Bon County, and from Bon County to Monrovia, meaning passing through other counties to Monrovia. But how far is that project? No one is hearing from the government. The government is not speaking as to whether they have started that project, as to whether what are the causes of the delay or why the project has not started. So all we can do is speculate genuinely on the premises of they themselves. George Weah went to the national legislature, and by the reasoning of legislative enactment or legislative dealings, he presented his programs and projects to the legislature. In the national legislature, I'm not sure they have ever asked whether that project and program presented during the first year of George administration, whether he ever implemented or he started that. So when the government is working, the workings of the government, the citizens keep track of those promises. If a president goes before the national legislature and say, "I will do this in this fiscal year or in this budget year," in my annual message, these are the he submitted to the national legislature what his programs would have been for that year, and he submitted it. So not just promising, but by the accord, by the voice of the Constitution, he was adhering to the Freeman's mandate that when you become president, in your annual message, you present your legislative programs to members of the legislature. So George Weah stood before the national legislature. He promised them coastal highway, among other things. What has happened to that promise or that legislative program? Iboma deal were on the table. There were a lot of discussions. I think that this was signed, and whatever has happened, there have been a series of discussions about this Iboman joint venture project. Uh, you know, deal, so to speak. So if there is a legislative program that was submitted, it is our view that the government needs to inform Liberians as to the status of the Coastal Highway project, or that deals with the Igbo man group. So the newspaper, we quoted the newspaper this morning because in one of our publications that they listed some of the unfinished businesses of the Liberian government. So we joined them this morning and we are highlighting what they have published. What has happened to the Igbo man's project or program or deals, and connecting that to the Coastal Highway. What is happening with the Coastal Highway project? The role. That was a major promise, not just promise, a legislative program. The year came and gone. So when there are legislative programs submitted to the national legislature, what happens if the end of the year, nothing happens? What happens? Are legislators concerned? I don't know whether the legislature has ever called on the president to say, well, you told us in your annual message that you would have done A, B, C, D. So what has happened? The year has come to your close. What has happened? And I think the principle of checks and balances in government, the national legislature is the one to mirror the executive branch of government and to ensure that there are performances. So if the legislature herself is not concerned or is not asking these important questions, and we want to appreciate the newspaper, that is what is expected in a better democracy or a democracy that works. That is what is expected. If the national legislature fails to do to play her constitutional role, to ensure a checks and balances in government, like this one, President went before you submitted his plan of action for the year. And since almost 5 years, nothing has happened. In fact, it should not have gone 2 years. So the media is the fourth estate. If you have media institutions, and this is where Two-Way Radio stands, we want every segment or fabric of the society to work. If that happens, the president will not be dancing all around the place. He'll be conscious because you will get to know that Liberians or institutions or the different segment of society is working and they're going to be asking him questions. George Weah became president to serve Liberians. It's not only George Weah we're talking about, but any other person who gets elected at that level has a very serious obligation. So on this one, we ask the question, what has happened to the Igbo Man project or deals? In connection with the Coastal Highway, what has happened to the Coastal Highway? You get just few more months to the election year. Trust me, you are gone 6 months. Right now, I know the mindset is all about elections. So the Coastal Highway, except in that miracle cannot work, is not possible for George Weah to do the Coastal Highway from now to the end of next year. It's not possible. So I know they're supposed to explain to Liberians, I mean, that the people's money, resources you're managing. So what has happened? That's one issue. The second issue is that you all are aware that there was some big program in Liberia as to Air Liberia. There was even a cake design to say, well, Liberia is supposed to get an airline. Liberians, again, were joyful. They felt that, yes, George Weah has come again. He's going to do the big thing for Liberia. What has happened to the airline? Liberia Air or Air Liberia. What has happened? And that premise was made, or that big and believable program was held. We all thought, yeah, oh yeah, the people, because this is it. Before a government can do groundbreaking, before a government can host an elaborate program to say, we're going to do this, it means you have done all your due diligence. You are very certain. In fact, it's like people have already signed some major deals since you can produce aircraft, that there has been a major discussion to which you appear before Liberians to say, we are about to have our own airline, Air Liberia. That was 2020, 2021, 2022. We're going to 2023. So we joined the newspaper to ask George Weah, the CDC government, the officials, who were all telling us, say, oh, the countryman, the country giant, what has happened to Air Liberia? What is the status? The CDC government don't want to tell Liberians, they don't want to explain. If you had this elaborate program and you decided that, hey, we're going to have Air Liberia, it is important that the CDC government, headed by George Weah, to tell Liberians what has happened. Again, the national legislature, when you're running a government, it's not about friendship, it's not about hatred. It's about the reality. What are you doing? If the president make major promises to the national legislature, and he doesn't perform, it's not whether you like him or not. The phrase check and balance in government is a serious matter. You can sit with George Weah and tell him, my man, you told us you're going to do this. What has happened to this? We need explanation. And of course, George Weah, with no disrespect to people, he would have provided some information to say, well, we promised this, but these are the hurdles. These are some of the problems. We anticipated that this would have happened, but because this did not happen, that's the reason why this is not happening. But without any explanation, it's not just a problem. It's not just something that is contributing to the underdevelopment of the country that you came to fix, but it's a major, major defect. It's a major failure of your promises to the Liberian people. Now, an election is coming. You want the people's vote. Some of them are going to be asking these very questions. And we are we're definitely going to raise those issues with you. Why do you think Liberians should vote for you come 2023 when you make promises you don't live up to them? So it's a major, major concern. In fact, no president should make promises that he cannot live up to. If there are problems along the way, because you promised the people, the first thing is you should not be told. You should have your to-do list as a president on a day-to-day basis. And by that, your presidential affairs minister or people in your office should take note of every promise you made or all of the promises you made. And they should be able to check those one you are completed and those undone one. So at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you will have a presidential paper that will say the president did A, he did not do B, he did not do C. And at the end of the year, there must be a presidential paper that you should leave in that office so that when you are gone tomorrow, Liberians can lay hands on those documents. No one should tell a president, someone who desires to be president, or you are president, and you should not be told that these things should be done. And sometimes some of those things you publish them. I've not seen any publication on explaining about Iboma and Air Liberia. If anyone has seen that, we would appreciate you just post it on this broadcast. We'll be glad to help the government to amplify what she has done in this regard. So what is happening to Air Liberia? That's the question we're asking. And we hope the executive branch of government, the executive mansion, will take note of some of these concerns and be able. You have the press secretary. The press secretary is not even speaking. The communication people at the executive mansion are not speaking. They should be explaining the policies of the president. The executive mansion tell Liberia, well, there was Iboma. What happened to Iboma? Oh, that has happened. They did not do that. And so because of A, B, C, D, this is what we have. There's a problem. We cannot implement what the president said. Or the president cannot do what he said because of this reason. When the president promised, he go before the national legislature, he present his annual legislative agenda that includes highway, and now by the extension of these programs, he come and he say, oh, Liberia is supposed to get an airline. Its own Air Liberia. Liberia is going to get its own plane. Now what Joey said, Liberia, and not just saying it, there was an elaborate program. We have photos here. We have videos. Then you don't think you should explain to the Liberian people what has happened? We know this is life. Anything can interplay. But take your time and tell Liberians what has happened. So we want to say thanks to the newspaper. That's the kind of a journalism we want to see it around. When you publish this thing, it doesn't mean then that you hate George Weah or you don't like the government. Whether you like it or not, George Weah the president, that's no even end about it. George Weah has made history for himself. He is a president of Liberia. But to be president is not all to it. It's not all to it. To be president, there's more expected of you. Let me just throw this in. George Weah dances too much around the place. He sings. Nobody said the president cannot have his private life, he cannot enjoy himself. But when there are serious issues, when you are having backlog of issues you are not done with, it's not that. When you're dancing, let me say this. When someone is dancing, there's a message sent out there. I mean, all is well. That's why you're dancing. When you're dancing, it means all is well. So, but you have backlog, you have issues undone, unfinished businesses, major unfinished businesses. So you should be thinking of how to, time is not in your favor. Especially your presidential days for this 6 years, I would think if you look at your programs, your promises, some of the things are not achievable. So that's the second thing. The third one is, we all know about when the George Weah took power, he promised 600 teachers. They were going to bring 600 Nigerians to Liberia to teach. Honestly, Liberia educational system needs to be revamped. The Liberian government, the education ministry, is supposed to look at education in a very wider scope. But once again, if you promise teachers, and this is part of your legislative program, there's no reason why you cannot achieve them. If you can achieve them, there must be cogent explanation. That's what we think. That's what we think a responsible government will do. So today we ask you, how far have you gone with the 600 teachers? Is it still part of the plan to get few more months the election year, what's going to happen? Well, we look up to you guys. It's all up to the US administration. And once again, our thanks is to the newspaper that has done a piece of job to catalog some of these things, to remind us and remind the Liberian government as to where it is. Another issue in that publication has to do with the LRA, the quarterly report of taxes collected. And indeed, I think this should be a concern to the national legislature. When the LRA, an institution set up by the national legislature to collect taxes, is collecting taxes, that's a major concern, issues of concern. Is the LRA reporting to the national legislature, or is it giving a quarterly, not only a quarterly report? The LRA, like any other institution, ministry and agency, is supposed to submit an annual report to the national legislature. Is by law. It's by law. It's not about favor. It's by law. So what happens if these agencies of government or ministries of government are now reporting to the national legislature? What happens? Are the legislature themselves concerned? Are they demanding these reports? Because these reports should live after the government. People who will come maybe tomorrow should be able to pick up these reports and be able to make some reading into what is it. So we just want to emphasize that the LRA quarterly report and all ministries and agencies, what are their reports? Are they submitting annual report to the national legislature? We assume that they will. That's the best way to go. When you submit an annual report, the national legislature go through it, maybe they just commend you and say, oh yeah, this guy is, his appointment and confirmation is no mistake to the country. It's a benefit to the country. But if you don't do these things for whatever reason best known to you, to yourself or to the government, then there's a problem. So we hope the LRA quarterly report will be submitted as per law. I think it's by law. So I don't know the legal authority here. But I know it's by law that every ministry and agency in government is supposed to submit an annual report. LRA is not an exception. So we think this is an issue that should be in the mind of the government. Recently, there is this issue of the national budget and the printing of the national budget into law. Summit 12 started to execute the national budget without it being printed into handbill. And that became an issue on the floor of the Liberian Senate. But even the Senate, when you raise these kind of important issues, at the end of the day, whatever your resolution is, whatever decision you come up with, when you give Liberians the kind of cogent information, it is expected that there will be a follow-up. And I'm told, and my understanding is that Summit 12 did not live up to this thing. He did not even go there. He's not even honoring them. I saw Darrell Dillon recently making comment that Tua having failed to appear before the Liberian Senate and give explanation, he must account for the debt portfolio. Well, that I also just saw that. So, well, senators, other government, like for example, the United States government that has the same democracy like Liberia's practice from, when the legislature summons or cites anybody before it, when you don't appear, maybe they do it 2-3 times and you ignore them, that person or institution is held in contempt, meaning all of the leadership of that institution is called to the national legislature. If they don't come, they issue an indictment for criminal contempt. If the national legislature, for example, sent for summons to a minister of finance who was appointed, confirmed by the national legislature, cannot honor an invitation to them, you get so much power as members of the national legislature. Summit 12 can be held in contempt criminal contempt, and an indictment can be prepared for him. So the first thing, before you go that route, the next thing is Samuel Tuah has his boss, the president. Tell the president, look, we are sending for your minister of finance. He's not appearing. That is an issue. We urge you, those of you, like for example, you send the executive committee of the Liberian Senate, send that president to the president. Mr. President, we are running a very responsible government. We want your finance minister to appear before the August body. Even if he appears, there is a closed door discussion, but he must appear. You tell the president that, the president, knowing about government, should be able to say, Mr. Tuah, is it true? The national legislature sent for you, you have not gone there? I gave you 24 hours to appear before those people, or you gave reason why you can't appear. Mr. Minister, this is my last time telling you. You must appear before the Senate. We are running a government. This is no friendship. When the senator sent for you, you must go there. George Weah, you are told Samuel Tuah that. That's how responsible government will work. But if Samuel Tuah takes unto himself not to appear, and the national legislature herself do not know what to do or know what to do and don't want to do it, then all of you are giving the wrong impression to international partners accredited near that country. They see all of you collectively as not being serious. Now the blended government, the CDC government is not doing A, B, C, D. And then when the people issue that report, you want to have problem with it. So that's an issue, and we thought to also emphasize that the printing of the national budget into handbill should have been the first thing before execution of the budget, before a dime would have been spent from the fiscal year budget. If that did not take place, you spend the money, you are out of order, you are out of the law, the practice and procedure, or the law of the country. You are not obeying the law. And when legislators themselves don't take action, I mean, all of you are in violation of the law. You know, so we want to commend the newspaper once again. It's a very important issue. This morning we are looking at some of the promises the government has made, the CDC government has made since it took power. And we're taking cue from the newspaper's publication, where the numerator or the listed some of those promises the government has made and has not lived up to them. All right. So another issue to raise is the issue that has to do with Director Brown Lassanan, the chairperson of the National Elections Commission. Election is coming. There's a lot of noise. You know, others are saying, well, Director Brown should not be chairperson of the National Election Commission. So when these issues are, of legal concern or legal issues for dissolution, there should be no delay on those things, because the person involved must be free of other embarrassment that will endanger the credibility of election. So we think when there's anything surrounding the chairperson of the National Election Commission or any of the commissioners, those issues need to be resolved. They should not be hanged. So importantly, we think, there's an important reason why the government must ensure dissolution or resolving matters like this. There's another issue that the newspaper spoke about, and that is the Tokonan Tipote some time ago filed a petition before the Supreme Court on the then Election Commission Chairman Jerome Kukoya on an issue of citizenship or not being a Liberian. I do not have any information as to whether the Supreme Court did rule on that. And the newspaper, we just want to highlight that. And we do not know how the court operates. We know how the constitutional mandate or their role as spelled out in the Constitution is all about, and other statute that give that say how they're supposed to operate. But as to cases going before them and the timely manner of those cases, whether it is within the purview that these information are important to be handled, how easily they are dealt with, we do not know. All we have to say, indeed, when these issues are raised, sometimes it's better that the people who are working, the operatives, those who are, for example, I know the courts don't allow a lot of media activities into the running of the justices or the justice system, not the justice system, the day-to-day workings of the courts. But sometimes it's important that there are briefings, either from the Chief Justice, or the Chief Justice don't want to be too much in the media. There are media people within that office. We're not saying you must take all of the issues that are concerning them into the media, but there are pertinent or there are important issues that borders society. And when those things come about, there's a need for the government agency, like the Supreme Court, to provide some information. There are some administrative issues, not necessarily legal, where you say, oh, this case is in court, they cannot be discussed. Being discussed is prejudicial. We're not going to discuss these things. So that's not what we're talking about. But when it is a case that's maybe over 2, 3, 4 years, nothing happening, of course, there's nothing wrong with saying, well, this case, like I was listening to a report from the Supreme Court of the United States, giving the catalog of cases, where some of the implications of these cases, so nothing is wrong with giving reason why you cannot handle anything in a case. This case has this implication, it affects society. So because of A, B, C, no, sometimes when you listen to people giving justifications why they can do certain things, you get convinced. You get no further thing to say. You have no way to argue about it. And that's why you read the minds of the public. You see what the public is thinking about. And then you just say, okay, this is the direction the people are thinking. We will provide them quality information. We will do all necessary research. We present a case study to them. Some of them are not knowledgeable, so that people can stop the speculation. And so now after you have done that, you gain more respect from the people. So the Topo Antipodes case against Jerome Kokoya, whether he's a citizen or not, I know it's not be a low sticker issue. Dual citizenship. All right? But if there was a petition filed, what happens? Well, it's up to the court to respond to that, or the government of Liberia to respond to that. Another issue is, who has the Liberian mission at the United Nations? Look, honestly, there's a lot that the CDC government is not, what do I say? I have a friend who worked for the United Nations, and I think he grew from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He grew up in the system. He's a very smart guy. And sometimes there are some names of appointment when we heard it. We talk people like that, would have had an opportunity. Or maybe he's not singing the CDC song, so he could not be appointed. But the question asked is not about him. It's just that there are more qualified Liberians who may not necessarily be a seditious. I know that Liberia, there's a lot that people do to keep suppressing that country down. When people are qualified, you give them the opportunity to serve. Not necessarily because they're singing. Some people don't even want to talk. Some people believe talking is just nothing serious. So if you're appointed to positions, they can't perform their position, they're gone. So the question is, who is representing Liberia at the UN mission? We might, I might ask somebody in there, but this guy wouldn't want to come on the radio and talk, you know. But society has an obligation. These people should have been performing some tasks. Every time you have an obligation or government supposed to take an action in the case of vacancy within those global institutions, there's a problem. Even the people don't tell you, but you cannot keep a vacant position on a global stage. Doing that is not in the best interest of the country. And I think those who are around the president should be able to say, hey, we have, in fact, you should know all of the Liberia missions and those vacant positions that are there, and you try to fill them. There are Liberians all around the world who are disciplined in those areas. Or you look within your own foreign ministry, foreign service, and see who is best fit and place and occupy the position. All right? And the new newspaper said the Liberia National Police must resume 24 hours operation. So the question comes to me, is the Liberia National Police not operating within 24 hours? Well, I don't have more detail, but I think the police should not even be told. They should be operating within. They should have no day that they shouldn't work. Holiday, Sundays, and of course 24 hours, it should not even be a question. So if they're not operating 24 hours, I think it's a major concern. But I know the police could respond to this and say, oh, who told you we're not operating 24 hours? But it means your presence must be felt. I think that's what is important. Not just say go to the police headquarters and sit there. Some of the questions some of us have is, the last time there was an issue in Calcutta, the police ran away. They left their post because they were overpowered by those protesters. So the question is, do you have enough manpower for the Liberia National Police? If there was a serious issue, can the Liberia National Police contain any serious upheaval? I don't know. The strength of the Liberia National Police, the equipment of the Liberia National Police. Sometimes I was thinking a few days, I said, well, we might keep eyes on the asset of the Liberian government in one of our broadcasts. Are people really preparing a government so that even if they are gone, are they buying? Is it GSA buying, equipment, important equipment that the Liberian government will call asset? Has there been any asset? Has there been any inventory on the asset of Liberia? So we're talking about Liberia National Police. How many maybe ammo? How many? I know someone says, well, we're not going to tell people that, but it's not about saying it. There's nothing. The arsenal of Liberia, how strong is it? Or do the people even in there care to say, well, okay, has Georgia ever called and said, well, I want to know the arsenal, how many things are in, the security stuff, or people just there talking and thinking that, okay, we don't have war, we don't have nothing, so nobody care. A Liberian developing the mind of being part of, the change of society. How many Liberians are thinking about, some of the newest technology that people are using to do other stuff? Well, I'm not in government. That's some of the issue. Okay. The next issue we have is the LEC. Well, we need not to say. Somebody said the news talk about LEC. When LEC will reach to the Buchanan port, I don't know. But LEC is the major concern. Electricity in Liberia is a major concern. We need not to overemphasize this. It's a concern. And I think the real government will answer to the Liberian at the poll, whether they provide electricity or not. It's not just Buchanan, it's the entire country. Liberia is old enough. Ghana is progressing. Ghanaians used to go to Liberia for vacation. Ghanaians were looking for teaching positions in Liberia. I remember Mr. Khan at the William V.S. Tubman High School when I was in school, when I was in high school. Not people, other foreigners were all going to Liberia to seek opportunity. But this day, even as a Ghanaian to go to Liberia to teach, nobody's going to listen to it. I mean, they're not even thinking about that. A Ghanaian will come from there all the way. In the United States, there was a case law we were studying when I was in law school here. There was a case law we're looking at. There are two countries that Americans respect so much when it comes to technology. You see India, you see Ghana. These countries are well respected when it comes to technological or computer, so to speak. So I asked myself, what is it that Liberia, can boast about? It's sudden, but that's why it is. And until you have people who will keep thinking, so much is happening. Some of us follow international development. So much is happening that, when a country is slipping backward, it's sudden. And we want to hope that there will be people who will be thinking in the direction. Some people, when you're talking like this, they feel, and these people don't know what is happening here. They will come with their big talks and all of this stuff. But that's not it. The reality is, when things are happening, people can see, people can feel. So there must be a way to proceed. How do you proceed? You cannot put the pressure on international partners. The world is changing so much. For example, somebody said Liberia has so much green forest. Green forest. And yet cannot feed us up. We go to Guinea for dry pepper. Liberians leave and go to Guinea for dry pepper. For God in heaven's sake, that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. You can't be going when you have so much rich forest. You're going to Guinea for dry pepper. I'm talking about other stuff. So it's a major concern. At the end of the day, things are getting worse every day. The war that is being fought in Ukraine, it will take years. So it shouldn't be, the people war not concern us. No, it should. Because even green, the people forest, imagine the way in which, tolerate fires, and there's a lot has happened to that country, not just the destruction of human lives and the equipment that is at the war front, but even the soil will be affected. Now, when these people were major supplier to the world community, we all should be thinking. Some of you that have these green forests, what are you doing? What programs do you have to produce rice? We heard something to agriculture is a priority, and this and that, and all of the big talk. How many farms the government has? How much money does it cost for the government to have farm in all of the counties? How much money does it cost? Superintendents. If you just have target to produce rice farm and provide money for those kinds of farming. Or we're talking about assets. How many farming equipment has the government procured, bought for each of those counties? We get a tractor. We get 3 tractors for Bon County. We get 3 tractors for Nima County. We get this one. How much asset is there for Liberia? I really would want to go into some research one day. Maybe the GSA will try to see, we found somebody from there, we can come and discuss these things. How much has been spent to buy major equipment, like farming too. We're not talking about going back, collises, hoax, and those kind of things. We're talking about mechanized farming. All right. So that's something to think about. All right. So today, these are being just our own way of focusing our mind on the newspaper publication, and we appreciate this guy. That's what we call journalistic analysis. Look at things and say, hey, this is where we are. The government make promises. It's well expected that people will live up to their promises. The national legislature should be able to check on the executive branch of government, especially if the executive branch went before them and laid down the legislative agenda. At the end of the fiscal period, it should be a concern for the government, the national legislature, see what has been achieved and what has not been achieved. So next year is election. You're going to be going to the people to seek their votes. Power is inherent in the people. The people, in a democratic setting, will make a decision. So based on your promises that you made to them, and they will make their decision as to whether you can be trusted for another 6 years. Until then, this is James Jensen and 2A Radio Inside Liberia, our broadcast today. We are thankful that you've been with us. Until next time, stay tuned and just join us. We will be here for a brand new edition. This is, once again, James and Jensen.